This is a slideshow of a visit to Iceland in 2015. Both myself and Boer went on different bikes, of course. This is mine for the trip, as you'll recognise it from all my other trips. And this is a new bike we got for Boer, which was a Yamaha Tricker 250. Here it is undergoing some renovations as it wasn't in the best of conditions. You wouldn't believe some of the bearings. And we had to make a luggage rack for it because it didn't have one. Here it is. This is pretty much finished before we had it powder coated black. Here's the vans loaded. We were taking them to a ferry port in Rotterdam. Not really a ferry port, a shipping container port. And here we are, we're just unloading the bikes from the van and they're going on frames, and it takes about a week from drop off to pick up for them to pop up in Iceland. Here we are, Schiphol Airport, on the day that we fly up to meet the bikes. As normal with Schiphol, they always like to keep the crowds entertained while they're queuing. And on this occasion they had some acrobats performing over in the check-in hall. Well done, Schiphol. Here's our flight, Bucket Airlines, wow, to Iceland. And there we are, already in Reykjavik, Reykjavik, visiting some relatives of mine. Had to pop into the volcano show. We didn't actually wait to see the show, but I wanted to go and see if Willie Knudsen was still there, and he was. This is a lake in the centre of Reykjavik. Next day we had to go and, we wanted to go and collect our bikes. This is sort of the shipping container area where all the bikes are received. These are our two. Fortunately they allowed us to leave a lot of stuff there, and we changed into our biking gear in the warehouse and headed out. Here we are, this is us just heading north from Reykjavik up the peninsula. Just stopped by the side of the road and took a photograph of this little waterfall. Was only very small by Icelandic standards. Still very pretty here. You can see this is typical Icelandic landscape. We headed up the first day to the North Star Hotel along this route. Here it is. Like many hotels in Iceland, it's unattended, so when you get there you phone up, they give you a code that gives you the key to the room. We were the only guests, and this is the size of the interior. Very nice indeed. The next day we moved on. We'd planned to go northwest up towards a place called Krossneslaug, and we were heading that way. We just stopped here for a coffee and some soup before digging in. It was very nice actually. We were the only people there again. This is a view from the restaurant, and these are the little houses. I assume they're for the trolls or little people out of Icelandic legend. Now we had continued to head north up to Krossneslaug. This is the general area. It's effectively the road end. This is the local town, and with a really nice harbour. And this is the harbour car park, but the white building on the right is actually a restaurant. So we went in there and had a really nice fish Thai curry. It was really quite nice for this area. We managed to find sort of a hut to stay in. It was quite pleasant. Once again, unsurprisingly, we were the only guests. This is the hut warden for this season. These are just some general shots of the area, because there's quite a large bay before you actually get to Krossneslaug, and I'll explain that in a little moment. That's the road we came down. This is a view from right outside the hut. This is Crossness-Laug, a bit further on. It's actually a swimming pool right on the beach. I'd never seen one before, and we wanted to head up this way. It was an area of Iceland I'd never been to before, so that was another reason. This is it effectively from the beach, and this is inside. There's a hot pool there which goes with every Icelandic swimming bath, and you can see the view. There's a few extra shots here. That's bored by the well, was bored by the way in the hot pool. It was a bit cold and windy that day, but it didn't matter because the waters are really warm. I didn't know it at the time, but I actually picked up an ear infection. Never mind. Right, the next day we headed back. There was, as I said, it was the road end and there was only one way in and out, and this is it. It's about a 3 hour ride or so from the nearest road where you can actually go anywhere or somewhere else. The next photo is a little town that you have to pass through called Djupavik. Very run down by the looks of it. I don't exactly know what they do there. These are just a few photos I took when we stopped there just for a break. Don't know how old that fire engine is, but it looks a bit run down. There's also quite a few wrecks on the coast, not just this coast, all round Iceland. This was one of them. I've no idea what sort of boat it was. I would imagine it's related to fishing, most things are. Anyway, we continued on. This is just some road scenes. It was windy that day. As you can see, I've actually got my windproof on. This is a bay. We were going all the way round and passing through this town. Right, we headed further round to this location, roughly on the map. Here it is. It's quite a nice place. We stayed in this hotel. There was a few other bikes there as well, as you can see on the left. This is a gas station, Icelandic style. And this is going over a fell, quite high up, windy, cold, but beautiful nonetheless. And descending from the fell. This next slide is taken from, yet again, another coffee joint. It's quite common in these parts, both in Iceland and pretty much everywhere in Scandinavia, for there to be restaurants and coffee places at junctions and on major routes. Right, we moved further south again. This time our stay was going to involve some camping. Here we are. This is the campsite we stayed at. And there we is. We actually got to put our tent up by a bench, which was far more comfortable, at least for me anyway. I tended to spend my time sitting on the bench rather than like this, sitting in the tent or enjoying the noodles. This is our cooking equipment for the trip. I'll spend a bit of time on this because it's worthwhile. This is a cooking pot that we cooked up noodles in, and then bowl, as you can see, with a spork. And then we have 2 bowls, 2 cups and the cooking pot. Now the reason I'm taking some time over this is they all fit together. This is them collapsed, and then they fit all inside each other, so it makes a nice cooking set, completely self-contained and small. And here's the cooking pot and gas stove. Again, all self-contained, goes in there nicely, and I put it next to my Garmin Montana for sizing. Moving eastwards this time, going up around the north coast. We stopped in this town. This is actually a small hotel or guest house run by some Polish people. Very friendly. It's a little bit out of the town, and we couldn't actually walk in because you had to walk all. There was no bridge across as such unless you walked all the way down to the main road, and we didn't do that, so we just had to walk around the beach here. And this is the view by night across to the town. Continuing on around the north coast, we decided I decided to stay coastal because that's pretty much where everything is. Typical Icelandic road scene. I'm not sure what that orange place is. I assume it's some sort of lookout point. Then all the way around to the next outcrop, if you like, peninsula. You can just see in the centre background a tunnel. We had to go through that tunnel to arrive in the next town, which was quite a nice fishing port. There it is. Fishing, as you might imagine, is a huge industry in Iceland. That's why they went to war with us over fishing rights for the 200-mile limit. Continuing on again, this time slightly south, heading down towards Akureyri, the main town in the north of the country. At this point we stayed at a ski lodge. We were the only people here again, and again it was unattended. But you can't object to the scenery. There was quite nice bunk rooms inside we had to ourselves. I was playing around with the camera a little bit. I tried to cut some of the shots down, but got some quite interesting effects. It's nice to see the clouds floating low down below the tops of the mountains. This was later on in the evening. There really is some quite nice cloud effects there, localised weather. The following morning we moved on. This was us getting ready. Our next destination was Akureyri. This is the main town in the north of Iceland. This is a view from the top of the town looking down towards the harbour, and this is a view along the harbour, and that's the main concert hall. These are just streets within, and we found a really nice fish and chip shop. Lovely cotton chips. As you can see, I'm well happy. This is looking back up the main street. Nice street art on the building. Again, the relatives were there. They seem to get around a bit. And this is what you call a desert vehicle, a real RV. And this is the local curry house, takeaway only. Steps up to the cathedral. This is Akureyri from the other side of the inlet. You have to go all the way round to carry on the ring road. As you can see, it's quite big, so although we weren't far away, it took a while to get there. Our next destination was Lake Mývatn and that area. It's a campsite I used a lot previously in Iceland. This is it, although it has grown significantly. It still has the tiered tent area, as you can see. This is our tent with all our stuff strewn around. Well, my stuff. All these orange tents are for tour groups, and this is the town in the background, looking across a lava field to the lake and the main road running across it. And these were some people we met there, some Italians. We moved on from there, going up towards, well, this is still on the lake edge, but we're going up towards Katla, which is a volcanic area, or a volcano in fact it is, overlooking Lake Meevaten. Lake Meevaten is actually quite at risk. This is the town, this is the lake itself with the major routes, and you can just see in this top right side here there is a volcano. This is looking back down on the town and down towards a power plant. Geothermal, of course, and that's sort of a swimming area. Right, we're going on to Hvalir now, as you'll see in the next slide, the correct spelling of it. This is a geothermal area where the cold water seeping down hits magma, then comes back up in the form of steam. This is the buses that were there. When I was here previously, I was alone. This is the difference now between 1987 and 2015. 27 years and an Icelandic financial collapse have made a huge difference to the economy and to the popularity of the country. It's now actually affordable to visit. These are all bubbling mud pools. You wouldn't want to get anywhere near those, or any skin, it would just take it off. The next few photographs are of fumaroles. This is where high pressure steam is ejected from the earth. That steam there is superheated. Any skin near that, it's gone. It's really, really hot. And it makes quite a noise as well. As I said, it's high pressure being ejected up from the magma level where the steam is superheated. This area is the magma and the geothermal activity is quite close to the surface of the earth. I was in a earthquake for only 4.1, but it's really weird when the ground moves. The thing you think is so solid under your feet, and it goes up by a meter. It's quite an experience, and that was only a 4.1. You don't get massive earthquakes in Iceland because it's where the plates are tearing themselves apart, not actually rubbing up against each other. Here we have some more, or the final few shots, another mud pool. There it is. Before we start to move on to another part of Iceland, we headed up here towards, no, this is Katla. This is where we're actually going up to Katla. That's looking down again to another power station. There are plenty around this area, and this is the Viti Lake for the volcano itself. You can just see the volcano in the background here. That's Bora at the top picture waving her arms around. That's looking back down to the car park. This is in the middle of a 10-kilometre geothermal crack. In 1987 I walked on some of that lava, and it was still hot from an eruption that took place 10 years previously. It actually came through the soles of my feet. Anyway, next point of call was Husavik, which is a really nice fishing village on the north coast, and is now the main centre for whale watching in Iceland. Lovely day again. Quite cool here, quite warm here, but while we were here we actually decided to have some fish and chips, of course, for lunch, but not to waste the opportunity, and we actually went out on one of these trips, on one of these boats, not this particular boat, nor that one, but a very similar boat. And we actually went out to sea for about 3 hours to do some whale watching. And to see some puffins as well in their natural habitat. There's Bor right at the front of the boat. This island here, when we get closer, you'll see, if you look closely, the sky has got all specks in it. That's not a dirty lens. Those are puffins flying around. There's thousands of them, absolute thousands of them, and you've got skewers hunting them down to eat. Now we're into some whales. We didn't get really good shots of some whales because I didn't have my long lens with me, but we have 3 or 4. And then some more shots back onto the boat. It was really cold out there, really cold. They gave you a woolly bear suit, but I couldn't get mine on over the boots, as you can see, Captain Ahab. Because we'd gone out on the whale watching, we had to stay in Husavik that night, so it was back to the tent again. Quite a nice sight, overlooking the town. There weren't that many visitors there, but for some unknown reason someone came and plonk themselves right by us. Next stop was a very special area of Iceland called Ásbyrgi. It's a canyon in the shape of a hoof print. An Icelandic legend states this is where Thor's horse's hoof touched the ground. It's also one of the few places in Iceland where there are actual trees. This is the head of the canyon where there's some water and a viewing platform. You can actually go part way up this cliff, and we did at one point. Don't know if I've got any photographs from up there. There wasn't a particularly brilliant view. Quite a bit of wildlife here as well, including this duck. Not sure what type it was, but I'm sure someone will work it out. Some nice wild flowers there as well. Morning dew. I'd visited this on my first trip to Iceland, and this field is where I camped, in this bottom left corner. You're not allowed to camp on it any longer, but you were then, and I was the only tent in the field. This is us departing the canyon itself, heading out towards the little museum that showcases the area at the head of the canyon road, on the main road. Anyway, leaving here we moved on to the waterfall area, or the main waterfall area of Dettifoss and Selfoss. This is quite a powerful, I think Dettifoss is the most powerful waterfall in Europe. This is the canyon it runs in. It's quite a walk down from the road to get to it. There it is, immensely powerful. You can get right up close to it. Basilic lava. In fact, one of the Alien films, the later ones, in fact I think it was the last one, the opening clip is actually in this position where I'm standing now, right on the edge. You'll remember it if you see it. Look at the power of this water. Millions of gallons an hour. I'd gone right to the edge, and this is the face of someone who did not approve. We continued down the road going south. It was really quite a nice ride. Beautiful scenery in this part of the eastern Iceland. There's Herðubreið in the distance. I think that's Herðubreið. If not, it's another tabletop volcano. That's the ring road you see snaking its way across that photograph. We were heading for a town called Aelstadir. This is quite an important town in the east. And then heading towards the south part of the lake from Aelstadir to a campsite I'd been to previously. Now the campsite was still there, really nice. There was a few more people here this time. I'd been alone yet again before. But what they'd done is they'd created some dams inland which had backed up all the water. This beach used to be about 50 metres wide, and it was easy to drive around this rock outcrop, but the water level had increased significantly so that you couldn't do that anymore. Didn't actually appreciate the reason why at the time, but as we move inland now, you'll see. This is where we go inland. We cross that bridge you can vaguely make out, and then continued along this road, which now was tarmac. Well, again, when I'd been there before, this was all dirt road, and I did wonder why it had been tarmacked, and it turned out it's because of the damming. Anyway, we moved further on, and by the time we got to this point, we were at the dam area, which is roughly here. Or here if you want, on a satellite image. And there is one of them for sure. Huge barricades. Not a traditional dam, but a dam nonetheless. Like most dams, you can drive across the top of it. It's one of the control rooms. And these desert vehicles showed up. It's big business now to do four-wheel drive interior tours for tourists. Whereas before, when I was there, you had to bring your own four-wheel drive. This is the name of the place. A bit further on, we came across this crack. I'm not sure if this is man-made, I suspect not, or whether this is the point where the island is ripping apart. And again, I'm not sure of the use of it. It may be an overspill or something. Here's those vehicles again. Looks like they're going in convoy. Quite impressive nonetheless, whatever the use of it. We took quite a few photographs here, as you can tell. This looks some sort of spillway. After this, we hit dirt, proper dirt, and headed into the interior proper. There's the road signs, and that is the main road we were standing on. And this is a road junction. We were travelling on the route 910, heading towards Kverkfjall, and we'd come from the other one 30 kilometres away. Yeah, it's wild. You can tell why the moon landings, or sorry, the training for the moon landing was conducted here. Now that's definitely Rotterdam. We were heading in that direction. That's near Askia, or just north of Askia, should I say. Quite nice driving. Now we were starting into the river crossings. This was one I was just walking through. It was no big deal, although we didn't actually cross at this point because of getting the bikes to the start. We actually went through a deeper section, but it was quicker and easier in the end. This is another one. They're small, but you never can tell how deep they are here. These are just general shots. I expect these wheel marks have been there for years. And this is another crossing. Now this one was quite deep. We had to do sort of a circular route around it. It was a bit stop-start this part of the trip, and a vehicle. Okay, we moved on and bumped into a ranger who gave us some details and hadn't realised that I'd been there before. Not long after this picture, Boer had quite a large spill in roughly this location. There's no photographs of that, but we ended up heading to Askja with one of the rescue crews. This is roughly where the Askja hut is. It was at one point, when I was there before, a single hut. Now it's a major rescue base and accommodation for travellers in the Highlands. There was quite a few bikes there, very friendly. But one of the Germans in a big GS even had waders with him, which was crazy. There's Herderbreath again. I read the original Askja book about that, and it was quite fascinating. This next shot, this shows the after effects of, or part of the visual after effects of Boer's accident. What we didn't know at the time was she'd actually bent her forks as well. Anyway, I arranged, because she'd also pulled her neck, I arranged with the rescue people who had to do a run to get some fuel that the next day one of them would actually ride her bike and she would travel in this vehicle out to the main road, which was the yellow line north. We were in the red circle and we travelled up that line. There was quite a couple of large water crossings on the way. We'd already taken that one bike across. We're just about to take mine over. This is another water crossing. This was taken by Boer from the vehicle behind us, as were a couple of these shots, as you can tell. That's actually a volcanic crater. You can drive into it. Anyway, we got back to the ring road, and there's a couple of shots. Boer was very relieved. That's the route we came up, which was actually closed to normal tourism. And there's the crew. The guy in the jumper was the one that rode her bike. Next we moved on back to Akureyri. We stayed in a hotel near the airport, a bit outside Akureyri, because it was all I could get at a reasonable price. And I wanted to stay there for a few days to give Boer's neck a chance to recover from the jolt it had received when she fell off. There's the end of the runway opposite the hotel and a plane taking off. I did some running repairs on the bike and added my torch to the handlebar because that was the only headlight she had. And it's Icelandic law to have a light at the front while you're travelling in Iceland. Makes common sense in their conditions. Anyway, we did have a look around Akureyri. There was some music, a music event going on while we were in there. And we actually found a steakhouse. We did go in and try the steak, but yeah, well, it might be good for Iceland, but it wasn't a good steak. This was the back of a pub, also music and me enjoying an ice cream. This is the Hof, which is sort of, I don't know, the main theatre. Breakfast for the next day. We headed off again, well, not the next day, 3 days later. We headed off again down west and then heading back towards Reykjavik. Roar was quite happy. Her neck had recovered considerably. We got back to this area where we actually stayed in a university. This is actually a university, well out of anywhere. There's nothing nearby, and we had a nice room there, summer hotel. Then we headed out onto the Snæfell's Peninsula, heading right along that part to the west. Now, it was really pleasant travelling along the north coast, as you can see. We went through that town, by the way, you can see in that photograph. There was almost nothing on the road. That's the way Iceland should be. Right, this is the town that I was mentioning to you before, a nice little fishing port. Boar had a walk up to right to the top of that rock. I went up part way, but Boar went all the way on. No, I went up to the top of one of them, and then Boar went over to the other one. That's a photograph I took. And then we continued further west. We went through quite a rundown town, as you'll see. Here's the local baker. Looks quite Russian, or at least that building did. Then we moved on before turning south and coming along the bottom part of the peninsula. That's when the wind started. The wind was phenomenal along the south coast of that peninsula, and at one point it actually blew me off the road. I thought I was going to go down, but I saved it. We stopped for a coffee not long after. Here we are, heading to Giza. This is quite a long way south and east. Some of the photographs you're going to see now, I've actually put them in quick succession because they are of this Giza erupting. It's quite impressive, as you can see. And the water then flows back into the hole. It's just steam being forcibly ejected from the earth. Now this is another one. This is really crowns, and you can really get a good impression of it blowing. Again, I've shortened the actual images. Crowds of people. And we went down to the south coast, and there's no photographs really from this area, but we stayed in a fishing cabin, or cabin owned by a fisherman, before returning to Akureyri to drop off the bikes. This is, I forget the name of the street. That is actually a dog. That is not a puppy. Well, it is a puppy, but that is actually a live dog. Not a bear or, you know, a toy. This is inside the cathedral in Reykjavik, just before we return the bikes. This is the area of Reykjavik which is a bit outside of the centre that we had to drop the bikes off. Here we are, and Boars was, I suppose, of the ones that were damaged, Boars was the least damaged. This is where Reagan met Gorbachev in the 80s for a major summit about arms limitation. There's a nearby statue. We were walking into town, by the way. And there is the centre of town behind me. This next is the Sun Voyager. It's quite an impressive installation. This is the main theatre, well, I don't know about Opera House, but it's the main theatre. And doesn't everybody feel like this sometimes? I thought it was a lovely statue. Monday mornings. This is the lake across Reykjavik again. You've seen this before, but not filmed at this time. Some of the local blooms. It was really very pretty. Then we went to meet up with Staney, a friend I'd made in 1987 as warden of the hut at Kverkfjell. He'd separated from his wife then and was married again to someone else, and I'd contacted him and we went down, or he picked us up in fact, with a view, and he took us to show us their church near his house. This was us climbing up to the tower, so that the bell tower, so that we could take a view. You'll see that in a moment. There it is. The next shot is of Staney and his wife. I hadn't seen him for 27 years. Yeah, they cooked us dinner that night. Really, really nice fish and potato and salad. And I reckon he used 10 pounds of butter, because it was all cooked in butter. It was absolutely delicious, but God only knows how many calories were in it. But it's that sort of place where you burn calories off very easily. This is just the president's accommodation of Iceland. We actually went right up to the door, but there was nothing to see, so we didn't bother. They then dropped us off at our hotel right near Reykjavik, not Reykjavik, but Iceland's main international airport. This was the two of them saying goodbye. The next day we had a 6 a.m. flight, so we were up very early. I'd booked a taxi to get us to the airport because it was too much to walk. And this is the homeward bound. Our bikes were already on the way. Looking down on the island for the last time. I must go back soon. Beautiful flight. Nice and smooth. I think the flight time was about 3 hours, so it wasn't that long, maybe 4. This is a rig that we passed over before landing back in the UK, which is this, which is my last slide. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it hasn't been too boring for you. And till next time.